Good morning, everyone. Last week I was on the Bill of Rights Network on Friday, and I did not do a show that would be safe for you guys to share just for me. And I have been keeping all of these videos on YouTube and for all of my kids. And so I figured I'd come back and I'd redo just the one on Obadiah, keep it short and simple. That way you guys can share it out. So we're going to get started talking about Obadiah. Sorry, it takes me a minute to share the screen. I have to click on a whole bunch of different things to get there. All right, here we go. Obadiah. We're going to talk about developmental delay, and we're also going to talk about hypotonia. A little about Obadiah. Obadiah was born January 24, 2016. It was a complicated birth for me, but Obadiah did great. We noticed right away that he seemed more floppy than usual, but he was healthy and passed all the newborn screenings, and he was also a good and easy baby. And in case you didn't know, I have a cold, so that's why I sound so terrible. I am going to see the doctor today, just to mention that. But Obadiah was a very good baby. He just was floppy, meaning that he didn't have a whole lot of control over his muscles. And very early years, Obadiah had a hard time gaining weight, which seemed to be an issue with every child I had except Micah, which is still the case today. He had a hard time raising his head, and when we soon found out that he had hypotonia and developmental delay. Hypotonia is low muscle tone, and it was for his entire body. This caused him to be delayed in gross and fine motor skills. So essentially, all of the muscles in his body, I wouldn't say all the muscles, because not the skin and not the heart and those types of things, but the muscles that are in your arms and your legs and your face and your mouth and your eyes and everything were lower toned. So it's not that they didn't work, they just he had to work harder to use the muscles, and he still does. And we're not really sure the cause of it. We think it's just kind of something that he was born with, and it's not something that I think that will ever go away. I think he's going to have to keep doing exercises and things like that to keep his muscles strong. And he'll have to work a little bit harder than the average person to do everyday things. I'm sorry, guys. Intervention. We started off with the infant toddler program and got Obadiah occupational and physical therapy. Obadiah also did not speak for a long time, and we had speech therapy for him, and he was so determined to be like his brothers that he picked up crawling and walking quickly with the therapy help, and we were able to discontinue those therapies. His speech was still an issue, and when he turned 3, he was put into a preschool intervention with the public schools. And it's kind of funny that I did this presentation on Obadiah today, because I just met with the psychiatrist yesterday, or psychologist, to go over the results of his testing, psych testing that we had done. And we talked a little bit about this. Occupational therapy and physical therapy work with Obadiah when he was really super young, before the age of 3, through the infant toddler program in the home. And he also went to physical therapy at an actual center where they worked on some of the gross motor skills to get him to be able to walk and to do the things that he needed to do. He did have to wear AFOs, which are ankle supports for his feet, for a while, because he didn't have enough strength to even stand on them and walk on them. He no longer needs the AFOs, but I still like to put him in higher top shoes just to give him the ankle support so he doesn't have any injury because of the low muscle tone. He's able to do everything that his brothers do. He keeps up really quickly, and that determination has helped him overcome a lot of difficulties, because many kids who it's harder for them to do things, they give up, and then it's really hard to get them to do it even more, because it's such a hard task for them to accomplish. And then trying to force them to do it when they don't want to, when they're super young, it's difficult. So the fact that he's the youngest of 7 has given him a lot of motivation and has helped him overcome some of those difficulties and those delays. And then he did go to preschool intervention at the age of 3. More intervention. Obadiah still is falling behind on some milestones as he grows. He also continues to be very small, but growing appropriately. He, like Jeremiah, was under the growth chart until about the age of 2 or 3. He's now showing some delay academically, but he does not go to kindergarten until next year. He continued in a preschool this year with additional help on meeting milestones. We now think he may have anxiety and are pursuing testing for this. So we're no longer pursuing testing for that. We do know that he does have anxiety, and anxiety can play a role in meeting normal developmental milestones. Not that you're not capable of doing it, you're just kind of anxious to display it or work with the people that are testing for those things. And especially with Obadiah, he doesn't like to talk in new environments and takes him a long time to warm up to a situation. And then once he feels comfortable, he'll talk. So, and that's something that we can address now that he has the diagnosis, and hopefully we can get him caught up. More on developmental delay. As I stated before, developmental delay is any delay that affects the normal development of a child and can be a wide range of things involving speech, gross and fine motor skills, social emotional skills, daily living skills, and academic skills, and also intellect. Early intervention is key in helping kids succeed when there is a delay of any kind. Many children with therapy can overcome the delay and catch up to peers. And this is especially true for those that are born prematurely. And none of my children were preemies, so I did not address any of that in my videos. But if you do have a preemie, you're more than likely going to be dealing with developmental delay and using the same type of therapy services with occupational therapy, physical therapy, and speech therapy. In academic and intellect, daily living skills and social emotional skills they fall outside of the range of what you can physically do with your body. And Obadiah's biggest struggle is the physical capabilities because of the low muscle tone. Social emotional skills difficulties, you may end up having, autism or some other developmental delay. In that regards, daily living skills also can be affected by ADHD. And there's so many diagnoses that I'm not familiar with. Like there's Angelman syndrome and Down syndrome and some other deletions and mutations on DNA that causes some of these developmental delays. And academic skills and intellect. So your intellect is your IQ, which typically is hard to measure until the age of 6, although they can kind of look at it to see whether you're falling really far behind your typical peers. And academics, really, you can't really tell until they're in a school age environment where they're working on academics, but you can see that if they're struggling a little bit. And that's kind of where Obadiah is. He's struggling a little bit to recognize those the letters and the numbers. He's struggling a little bit to write out all the letters of the alphabet. He's not quite in kindergarten, so it's okay. So he has time to work on those skills, but it just gives us a little bit of a heads up that, hey, there might be an issue here. We're going to watch it, but he may be just fine. So no milestones. Most pediatricians will check on milestones for development, but it is a good idea to know what your child should be doing and when. There are many questionnaires online that can help, but one I am familiar with is the ASQ, or Ages and Stages questionnaire. Check that one out if you are curious how your child is doing now. It is not just early years that need to be looked at. Developmental needs to be followed into adulthood. As I stated before, we did not discover autism in Ezra, which is Obadiah's older brother, until he was in 1st grade. So don't think that because you make it to kindergarten that they've met all their milestones and they're good to go. It's a good idea to kind of keep an eye on it even as they grow all the way into adulthood. ASQs are available up until the teenage years. So I would recommend checking those out even if you have a teenager. There's a lot of development that has to go on before you become an adult. And sometimes things can happen and children just need a little bit of help reaching those stages. What can you do? Be understanding that Obadiah has a harder time doing gross and fine motor activities due to his muscles being weaker. He may get tired easily and need a break. Know that Obadiah is a little behind his peers, but he will catch up soon, and I really do believe he will. And I think the psychologist agreed that he will, with the support he has, we think he's going to catch up just fine. Learn more about developmental delays and be understanding of people that may not be able to do everything that you or I can do. And I think exposing typical children to those that are delayed is such a huge benefit to both the children that are delayed and those that are typical. We learn at an early age to be accepting and understanding of people that are different. And then those that are different learn that they can be loved and accepted by those that are typical. So it's just something that I highly recommend that you expose your kids to. And screen your children regularly to see how they are doing with development and get intervention right away if there's any problem. The sooner the intervention when there's a problem, the better. And I know that it's hard as a parent to think that there might be something not quite right with your children. And sometimes this has led to children not getting services as soon as they could have because of fear from the parent. But I would encourage you to not be fearful, that the earlier you get intervention, the better. You don't need to have labels for intervention a lot of times, especially in the early years. There's help available without any diagnosis. As they get older, you may need a diagnosis to get therapy and treatment, but that's for insurance purposes. I have not had any bad things happen to my children for having certain diagnosis. We were discussing that after a certain age, they can't just be labeled developmentally delayed. It does change into, it has to be more detailed on what exactly is going on in order to get help. So instead of encompassing all of the areas that I mentioned before, it would have to be specifically a type of speech delay or a specific type of fine motor or gross motor delay or other diagnosis. But when they're young, developmental delay helps you get services that you need. And then you can become more targeted as they grow older on what their exact needs are and what they really need work on. And that's really helpful. Pictures. It froze on my phone. I don't know if it froze on StreamYard. No, okay. Good. So these are some pictures of Obadiah. And a lot of them are older pictures because I didn't have a whole lot of younger pictures, but he's so darn cute. It was hard to pick out just a few to put on the stream for you. He just graduated preschool, so that's them with his little preschool hat. And here he's a baby. Here's his quilt. This is his first day of preschool. He was not happy about going, but he eventually warmed up to it. I love his little angry face right here. This is one of his birthday parties. And this is more recently taken when his brother's at our jiu-jitsu. And that's one of the things that for Obadiah that his anxiety impacted, because we tried to have him in jiu-jitsu and he just wasn't quite ready to do that. And I think anxiety played a part in it. So I've been taking him just about every time I go with his brothers to expose him to it, to let him see it. And I think after we go several times, it may take a while, but I'm hoping that he'll warm up to it and then he'll be able to join in with his brothers, because I think he would do just fine. He just needs to get over that fear and anxiety of it. Okay, so I have gone long enough. I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you're on my YouTube, I am on ET1 Richard Muller Jr. and Family on Facebook. And then if you're on Facebook, I'm on the Muller Family 7 show on YouTube. And I hope you guys have a great weekend and an amazing summer. And I have no idea what I'm going to do next for my next show on Friday, but just stay tuned and you'll find out. Bye, everybody.